These are Washington cold cases for 1991 through 1999. Before we go over the cold cases, please make sure that you're following the channel. You give this video a like and you share it out. It not only helps the channel, but it helps spread awareness on these cases. Also, please forgive me for any names that I may mispronounce. Darcy Ward was last seen in Seattle, Washington on April 24th, 1990. She was 16 years old. She would now be 51. She was between 5'2" and 5'7". She weighed between 145 and 174 pounds with brown hair and blue eyes. If you have any information, call 206-684-5582. Goet Fung was last seen in Linwood, Washington on May 9, 1991. She was 19 years old. She would now be 53. She was 5'2" and weighed 115 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 425-670-5600. Misty Copsey was last seen in Tacoma, Washington on September 17, 1992. She was 14 years old. She would now be 47. She was between 5'8" and 5'9" and weighed between 105 and 120 pounds with blonde hair and green eyes. Any information, call 253-841-5415. Douglas Becker was last seen in Accordes, Washington on November 5, 1992. He was 16 years old. He would now be 48. He was 5'6" and weighed 140 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 360-679-9567. Ronald Fry was last seen in Coopeville, Washington on September 25, 1993. He was 15 years old. He would now be 47. He was 6'2" and weighed 155 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 360-678-4422. Bryce Herter was last seen in Abe, Washington on April 9, 1995. He was 6 years old. He would now be 36. He was 4 foot, weighed 60 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 360-645-2701. Lenoria Jones was last seen in Tacoma, Washington on July 20th, 1995. She was 3 years old. She would now be 33. She was 3 foot, weighed 40 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 253-798-4721. Luke Dayoth was last seen in Raymond, Washington on February 6, 1996. He was 11 years old. He would now be 40. He was between 4'2" and 4'5" and weighed 65 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 253-798-4721. Katia Lynn was last seen in Federal Way, Washington on March 21, 1997. She was 15 years old. She would now be 43. She was 5'3" and weighed 125 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 253-661-4600. Tika Lewis was last seen in Tacoma, Washington on January 23, 1999. She was 2 years old. She would now be 28. She was 3 foot, weighed 35 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Any information, call 253-798-4721. Tammy Kowalchuk was last seen in Tacoma, Washington on December 26, 1999. She was 17 years old. She would now be 42. She was 5 foot, weighed 100 pounds with blonde hair and blue eyes. Any information, call 253-798-4721. If you have any information on any of these missing persons, please call the number listed with their case.